everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of my Facebook live session series on my interpretation of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen R. Covey. We are now at the fag end of this 9 episode series, and I'm very excited. The response received from all of you is overwhelming. Your emails and messages keep me going, and also shared what worked through the series. And that was such a great insight for me when you shared what all things worked for you and what was your takeaway. So keep the messages, emails flowing, and as promised, I will personally respond to each one of you and your answer your queries too. So as you know that we are doing this series, and we would be doing the episode 8 today. But before we move ahead, my gratitude to all of you for joining today for this episode and for your continuous support. For those who are joining us for the first time, you can see all the previous episodes in the video section of my page. Today, we will not be doing a recap of all earlier episodes as we have been doing till now. However, this episode is designed in a manner that we will be picking the important points as we go along. So before we move ahead, starting with a quick background on me, my name is Rashie Sinha, and I'm a business consultant, coach, and corporate trainer. I started my corporate journey 20 years ago, and over the years have worked with multiple organizations where revenue generation was a key highlight of my KRA. I have a deep experiencing in launching new business verticals and products. I'm, I'm not a certified trainer, but a trainer through experience. My corporate roles and the nature of my work made coaching an extension to my profile, and I soon realized that I'm a natural at being a coach and trainer, and hence the choice of becoming a business coach, consultant, and trainer. So as a consultant, I work towards building growth for my clients and work with multiple mid-sized businesses and startups to help them define and structure new revenue generating streams or help them tweak their current business working to create fast-paced growth for them. If you wish to know more about me, you could head to my LinkedIn profile. Sorry, that was my phone and I missed putting it on silence. I've just done that. So now what are we going to cover today? So here it is. So the structure of the entire series is spread over 9 episodes, and this is how it looks. We started with the introduction of the book, and then we dived into the habits, and we did one habit per episode. And also by end of each episode, there was a take action point or a task to do which needs to be worked on before the next episode. I'd highly recommend that you sit with a pen and notebook to take notes and, if possible, maintain a journal through the entire journey. For those who are regular with the series, hope you did do the task of last week, which was to make a list of people who irritate you and then try and understand why you feel that way about them. Understand the differences between you and such a person, and then try to see how could you both together, while respecting each other's differences, do better together. So the habit, like I mentioned earlier, the habit number 7 is what we are going to cover today. So this is the various habits we have done, and habit number 7, which is sharpen the saw, is what we are going to talk about. However, before we move ahead, here is another bit of share for all of you. Some of you are already aware, and this is for the rest of the people joining us here. I have created a group within this Facebook page through which you are seeing this Facebook live session. So, if you're interested in creating a lasting impact in your life using these habits, I would recommend that you should join that group. I am sharing the link of the same in the chat below. So, here you go. Yeah, 1 second. So here is the link to the group which I have created, where I would be speaking with all those wanting to imbibe these habits and wanting to go ahead or have any queries. You could also join this group, share, and we could discuss the details of the 7 habits over there. You can ask me questions and get your doubts cleared too. Now, what we have understood till now is about the various habits is something like this. Everything is based on certain principles that need to be followed. Like in habit number 1, we began by creating principles of personal vision. While working on these habits, we need to stand apart from ourselves. This means look at yourself as a separate person. I know it can be difficult for some, and that is when you can revisit the earlier episodes or ask me question in the group I have shared, and I'll be happy to help you to take you through the process. In habit 2, we understood the principle of personal leadership. We need to understand, and we understood how important it is to know the difference between leadership and management. Leadership being the things I wish to accomplish, and management is how I can accomplish certain things. Till we do not define what we have to achieve or where we want to go, management will be of no use. And talking about habits or talking about management, habit number 3 is where we understood the principles of personal management about defining tasks, scheduling, and all the integrities related to personal management. With these 3 habits, from 1 to 3, we were talking about our journey within, from becoming an independent person, where we started from being a dependent person. Now, with these 3 habits and a journey from being dependent to independent, we move to something called the beginning of public victory, where we got introduced to habit number 4, think win-win, where we talk about interpersonal leadership. Interpersonal leadership is not about just leading ourselves, but also the people we interact with, and leading them and ourselves in a manner that it is benefit for everybody. So we work on areas and situations that it turns out to be mutually beneficial. Habit 5, we explored the act of seeking to understand first, then to be understood, and by exercising empathic communication, principles of empathic communication. Habit 6 is about the principles of creative cooperation. If it's possible, you may ask that I just said 2 minutes back that we would not be doing a recap today, and then I'm taking you through all these principles. Well, there is a reason for it, because it is somewhere directly related with habit number 7, which we are going to talk about. And why I'm saying it is because the way this set of habits is structured, and I have mentioned it multiple times, that I am a big fan of how these habits are made in a step by step manner, that each becomes a stepping stone to move ahead to the next habit. And in habit 7, which we are going to discuss today, as you can see in this diagram, this habit actually holds all the habits within itself. Habit 7 is the habit that makes all the 7 possible. So this is the habit which talks about the principles of balanced self renewal. Now we will get into more details about this. So let me share a story with you as the opening of understanding habit number 7. So the story was, once upon a time there was a man. He was walking through a forest to get from one village to the other. Somewhere in the middle, he met a woodcutter, and the woodcutter was hard at work trying to cut a tree. Obviously, woodcutter we all know is the lakadhara. So he was trying to cut the tree and really working hard at it. So this man stopped to speak to this woodcutter and asked him what he was doing. So the woodcutter, obviously irritated, already tired with all the work, said that, "Can't you see I'm cutting this tree?" So the man stopped by, looked around, observed the woodcutter for a bit, and then said, "But for how long have you been doing this?" And the person has not was not able to reach even the half of the tree trunk. So our man asked him, "So you've been doing this for how long?" So the woodcutter responded, "You don't understand. This is hard work. I've been at it for last 5 hours." So the man told him, "What if that you took a step back, a break of 10 minutes, and sharpened your saw?" Woodcutter looked at the man as if the man had gone nuts and said, "Can't you see? I am so busy. I don't have time to sharpen the saw." I am sure you would have all understood what I was hinting at. So, if the woodcutter was not able to cut even half of the tree, had he actually, in 5 hours, had he actually taken the break to sharpen his saw, probably he would have moved faster. However, he felt he did not have the time to do the sharpening of the saw, and continuing to work was what he preferred doing. Well, this is the crux of habit 7. Habit 7 is all about optimizing your personal production capacity, or, in other words, ensuring that we are able to use all our strengths in the best possible way. In fact, if we look at it from another term, it is all about renewing our 4 dimensions of our nature. And these 4 dimensions, as depicted in this image, are physical, spiritual, mental, and social oblique emotional. These 4 dimensions have been presented by multiple thinkers over the years, and a lot of philosophers have spoken about it, using different words and phrases. If I have to give you an example, philosopher Herb Shepherd described healthy, balanced life around 4 values. Now, what are these 4 values? He said one should be perspective, which is spiritual, one of the dimensions we just saw. He said the other habit is being having autonomy. That is the mental dimension. Then he spoke about connectedness, being connected with other people. That is the social and emotional dimension. And he spoke about tomb. So that is, I'm not getting into the details of the terms over here by philosopher Shepherd. The idea is to explain how it's talking about these 4 dimensions essentially. So tomb is about the physical dimension. Now, if we talk about the organization theory, so organization theory embrace these 4 dimensions or motivations as the economics, which is the physical dimension, how people are treated, which is the social and emotional dimension, how people are developed and used, that is the mental dimension, and the service, the job, the contribution the organization gives to the society in general is the spiritual angle to, or the spiritual dimension. Basically, habit number 7 encourages us to be proactive. Like the story I just shared about the woodcutter, if he had taken time to sharpen the saw, he would be operating in quadrant number 2. And those of you who have been with us from the beginning know what I am talking about when I say quadrant number 2. It is this particular figure where we discussed the quadrant 2, that is area where we do the tasks that are important but not urgent. This was discussed in habit number 3, put first thing first. So there are a lot of things which are important and we need to be proactive about them and work at it. They are very important, but currently not urgent. This is what is called working in quadrant number 2. When we are doing our work in this manner, we will always have time to do more things and also use our maximum potential. However, most of us operate in quadrant number 1, where things are important and they have also become urgent. So the idea is to try and move towards quadrant number 2 step by step. We need to understand investment in ourself is the single most important investment we can make in life. Hence, we need to sharpen the saw in all 4 dimensions we spoke about. And now let's look at each one of them one by one. So, the first dimension that we spoke about was the physical dimension. Physical dimension, as you can see, explains under the image as exercise, nutrition, basic overall stress management, and doing well within ourselves. So the physical dimension is all about eating the right kind of food, getting adequate rest and relaxation, exercising, and keeping oneself disease free. If we are physically fit, we build better endurance, flexibility, and strength to handle any kind of a situation. And while speaking about this, I'm actually reminded of a small story. This was few years ago. I was quite regular at a gym. So while I was there, I would notice a few well-built men trying to lift weights, and there was one particular person out of them who was quite a regular, and he would have his friends helping him do better and help him with lifting more weights and doing various kind of workout schedule. Of course, when you see few faces regularly, there is some familiarity developed, and you tend to acknowledge each other's presence with a nod or a smile or a quick greeting. So, this person who was there at the gym regularly, we did get acquainted. And one day, when I was there about to finish my hour at the gym, this person walked up to me and requested for help. Now, what he told me was that he was doing weight training, and since his friends were not able to make it that day, he was seeking my assistance. So he told me that as the time goes by, he wants me to keep increasing the weights on the side and not remove anything till he asks me to do so. I agree, it sounds very simple. So we picked up certain kind of weight. He did a complete cycle of that. Then he requested me to add weight till the time we added so much weight that I was worried. Still, because he had told me, I did add that weight on his both sides, and he was pushing up the weights, and one could see that every part of his body was stretched, as if it was too much of effort to do what he was doing, and it was taking him a lot of endurance and effort to pick that weight. I was almost in the mind that I need to probably urgently pull those weights away, because it looked as if he might just collapse any moment. And I was almost going to do that, but I thought maybe he's having some kind of an issue and he has forgotten to tell me to remove those weights, and this is going to be a health emergency. There was hardly anybody in the gym who I could seek help from. So while I was getting worried and planning to do the needful, the man asked me to remove the weights. So finally, when he was done and the equipment was kept on the side, I asked him, why was he troubling himself so much? Wasn't this a torture? He started laughing. He told me that the way our muscles are built, that they can be taken to the edge, and when we take them to that edge and give them that kind of a stretch, we build the strength of the muscle. So that is what he was doing. He was into muscle building, so he was taking his stretching the extent of his muscle to the level that there is an internal wear and tear, and when that wear and tear heals itself, that muscle is going to be stronger than before. And he said, you must have heard this, no pain, no gain. Well, that is what habit 7 also teaches us, that we need to put effort to do more. Another way to look at this is, we all faced the lockdown in this year, and many of us did household work for the first time. I am sure when you were doing those things at home, you would have felt stretch in your muscle at various places. That's again something which was happening. The areas which we were not exercising got stretched. But then, after a while, that pain would have gone away, because our body became used to it. The muscle strength in that area became good enough to handle that kind of endurance. Hence, it is important to keep working on a physical well being. And this is a quadrant 2 activity again. However, you are parallelly working on another habit, which is habit number 1, where we learned about being proactive. How? There could be multiple situations we may face in our life which would need physical strength, and we, being proactive, are working on it. All of us are moving ahead in our age. So when we keep and ensure that we stay physically fit today, we are preparing for a future where our body strengths, our situation could be very different. And when we are preparing for it to from today itself, we are looking not just at a present point of view, we are building a more holistic point of view. And that is what we are doing, is being proactive and working towards our future also, and keeping that in mind. The second dimension that we are going to talk about is the spiritual dimension. Now, working on the spiritual dimension provides direction in our life. It is about personal leadership in many ways. Okay. And it is relatable to habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind. Now, when we talk about the spiritual dimension, it is your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. I believe this is one dimension which actually is very private to you. I believe your belief system is always very personal. You can't copy paste and pick someone else's belief system and fit into it. Yes, you can get inspired by multiple things. However, you always build your own belief system and your own spiritual dimensions. While I was reading through this section in the book, which is talking about the spiritual dimension, I actually got reminded of an experience a friend had shared many years ago. So, he had been to a meditative retreat for few days where he was to be in isolation, basically practice a complete isolation from all kind of human touch or any kind of entertainment. That is, he was not to speak with anyone, he was not supposed to watch any kind of television or other entertainment or even have access to phone. Now when he came back, he did look like a different man to me. So we got talking and I asked him about his experience and he shared something very interesting. He told me that initially he felt lost because we are so used to talking to each other, seeing another face, getting into some kind of engagement which is outside of us. He said that this retreat was making him sit with himself. So after a while, he started catching his thoughts. He was not sure what to do with it. Then he started looking around. So he started listening to the sound of water in the other room. Slowly, he was able to listen to the bird chirping. And that kind of intrigued him. So he continued to listen more and listen carefully. He was able to listen to the slightest drop or change in the environment around him. And he was sharing that that was extremely liberating for him. It kind of opened an entire new way of feeling for him. And that is when he also started doing another thing, is he started remembering a lot of things. He was like, because suddenly he was not pushing his mind to be always busy in some thought or the other, he somehow felt that he could suddenly remember a lot of things from his past which he thought he had forgotten or he didn't even remember as an experience. So he started recollecting a lot of things and emotions related to his childhood, the things which his mother said, the experiences he had with friends, and he caught himself smiling at multiple occasions. So we all know when we speak about our childhood or our early years, there is some kind of innocence associated with that. And when he started feeling that by remembering those emotions, he started examining his current life. He started thinking from a different perspective. He started talking to himself from the child he was. Because those emotions were back, that feeling was back, there was clarity of thought, there was more truthfulness in his emotions and feeling, that he started examining the reasons and motives he had towards doing certain things he was doing in his everyday regular life. And as he went further and digged deeper, he realized that there were a lot of things he was doing which did not serve any purpose or were not coming from a positive space. That is when he started doing all that, a paradigm shift started happening in his mind. And then he came to a very important point, was the various emotions he felt, various things that were bothering him. Suddenly, when he was able to examine his motives, lot of things which were bothering him till that time vanished. And then he was also the other things which were of concern to him, he was able to see them in a different perspective. And that, he said, did have a deep impact in his overall approach towards life. So my friends, spiritual renewal is very important. However, it takes investment of time. But then it is a very important journey. During this journey, you will realize why and how important is what we learned in habit number 2, the personal mission statement. This is one another thing spiritual renewal does with all of us. Uh, when we go through the spiritual renewal process, we tend to think cooperatively. We tend to promote the welfare and good of other people. And we automatically become genuinely happy when people around us succeed. Now, with this, what have I done? I've just shared with you that this is the combination of habit 4 and 5. So, when we are in the spiritual dimension, we are going deeper in habit number 2. However, the after effect of that habit is working on the combination of habit number 4 and 5. Isn't that all very interesting how they are connected? Now, the third part of the dimension is the mental dimension. Our mental development mostly has come from our formal education, our school life. And once we got done with that formal education, we stopped working on developing further education or working on it. We stopped exploring new subjects or new topics. In fact, we come across this common argument that even when we are in schools, why do we need to study so many subjects? And the explanation given is, I'm not using algebra in my day-to-day life, so why did I have to read that in school, or why did I have to go through organic chemistry, or why did I have to understand what happened in the medieval India, the history of India, or any other country for that matter, or World War One or World War Two, because I'm not using all of that in my everyday life. True, you are not. However, had you not read those subjects, had you not gone through that process, how had we realized what is the area we want to pick in the later part of our life? What works for us? What do we like and what we don't like? So that is why it is important to explore new things so that we at least know what works for us and what doesn't. So even now, so after school, we stopped consuming all that. However, the important point in the mental dimension is that we should not stop exploring new areas. We should continue to work in this area. Well, it's not that with time that we stop consuming information. We do. The most of us spend multiple hours each day around, maybe 40 to 50 hours on television, social media, and other type of entertainment. We tend to watch soap operas, entertainment movies, or different web series. So yes, we are still consuming information. However, the question we need to ask is, how much of it is helping us work on a mental dimension? It is extremely important to continue the mental exercise and stimulate the mind to newer things and possibilities. We spoke about communication in earlier episodes and shared that reading, writing, speaking, listening are all forms of communication and also a great way to sharpen the saw of our mental dimension. So, we should continue to read what will help us increase our knowledge, write whatever we want to, because writing is a great mental exercise too. Have a personal journal, and I have always emphasized on it. I can never say less about writing, and I'm always telling people, in fact, at the beginning of the episode, and in fact you would go back to each episode, right at the beginning I always recommend sit with a pen and paper, jot down things, because it I really believe that these things work, and writing is a great way to ensure proper mental exercise. Another way is to listen to or watch informative programs. Have entertainment, of course, but then it's important to limit it. Of course, to do all this, you will have to work on organizing your tasks and planning them. Isn't that what we learned in habit 2 and 3? So, that is how various habits come together to work with us. See, the habits don't work in isolation, they work in tandem with each other. So, now we move to the fourth dimension, which is the social and emotional dimension. The three dimensions that we spoke about till now, they are essentially linked with habit 1, 2, and 3. That is, we are talking about private victory, which is person to us, sorry. Whereas the fourth dimension, the social and emotional dimension, is all about habit 4, 5, and 6. That is, this is where we speak about public victory. When I say public victory, it is about interaction, the interpersonal relationship. So our emotional life is within us. However, it is linked to and gets manifested in our relationship with others. This is what is this dimension about. So renewing this dimension is less time taking in comparison with the other dimensions. We can do it with our daily work. However, it needs to be practiced with self awareness. Basically, I'm saying is that for other dimensions, you need to take time out, schedule them separately. With this particular dimension, you can do it all along various other things. So the only things required at that time is awareness or self awareness of doing that particular act or working on this particular dimension, or at least initially it would be required when we are getting used to it. So keep checking on ourselves. In fact, it can become difficult if we aren't practicing the habits associated with the private victory or the public victory. So, yes, this particular dimension takes a lot of the other habits to practice it properly. Now, let me explain this dimension through an example. Suppose you are one of the key people in my life. You could be my boss, my dearest friend, my spouse, someone with whom I want to interact or have, you know, daily interaction or some kind of, setup due to the nature of our work. Suppose we have to work together, communicate with each other, discuss things, accomplish tasks, but then we see things differently. We have different glasses on. What to do? That is when comes a lot of other things. So now imagine, though we have to interact on a daily basis, we have to communicate, or we like to communicate with each other, but then we come from different set of pattern of thinking. But then I am practicing or sharpening my saw of social emotional dimension. What will I do? I will come to you and say, I can see we are approaching this differently. What if we agree to continue our communication till we come to a solution we both feel good about? Would you be willing? The chances most people will respond with a yes. What have I done? I have just practiced think win win, which is habit number 4. Moving on, I say, okay, let me try to listen to you and attempt to understand your point of view. I have just actioned habit number 5. So you start sharing your point of view, and once you have finished sharing it, I summarize it as I have understood. Obviously, you could interject and correct me wherever I am moving away from what you were trying to say. Once we have done that, will you not be open to knowing my point of view? Will you not make efforts to understand what I am trying to share? So I initiated it, but together, now we are practicing habit number 5, which is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Once we have shared each other's standpoint, we will now try and work towards finding a solution that works well in the given situation. This is practicing habit number 6, synergize. As you can see, habit 4, 5, 6 is not about intellect, it is about emotions and social interaction. The way I presented my case to you, you and I being two people who need to interact, the way I presented my case to you, I was actually working through emotions and social interaction. Also, note that the above will happen when there is a sense of security between you and me. Also, a sense of security within me first. If I haven't really worked on my private victory, that is habit 1, 2, 3. Habit 1 being proactive. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. And habit 3 is about put first things first. I will remain insecure and a dependent person. I may superficially look to work in the social emotional dimension. However, I won't be able to work on my or your true potential in such case. Hence, it is important to ensure that we practice these habits well. The self renewal process must include the balanced renewal of all 4 dimensions of our nature, be it physical, spiritual, mental, and social. Till now, whatever I have explained to you about this process and the dimensions, it was from a individual standpoint. You know, this is true even for the organizations. How? Now, when we talk about, let's go back to the image. So, when we are here, so the first dimension we spoke about was the physical dimension. We are talking about health. In terms of an organization, health is talking in economic terms. When we speak about the mental dimension, we are talking about doing more for ourselves, enhancing our capabilities. So this is where in an organization we speak about recognition, development, and the right use of talent. When we speak about the social and emotional dimension in an organization, we are speaking about human relations, how people are treated, the company culture. That is all part of the social and emotional dimension. And spiritual dimension in an organization is finding meaning through purpose, ensuring writing your mission and vision document and practicing it, or making a contribution to the society. We speak about corporate social responsibility in today's time. They all would come under the spiritual dimension for an organization. So when an organization tends to neglect any one or more of these dimensions, it will negatively impact the organization. Hence, maintaining the balance is very important. It is important to note that your action or inaction in any specific dimension impacts the other dimension as well. It's all interrelated. So, for example, if you neglect the physical dimension, all the other dimensions will get impacted. I have another example. I did the same thing. I did neglect my physical health a while back, and because of which I fell ill. Now, what happened? All my other work areas stopped. All the other dimensions got impacted because I was not paying attention to my physical dimension. My progress in my spiritual, mental, and social emotional dimension were all impacted. The most impacted was the mental dimension and the social emotional dimension, right? So when we continuously work at ourselves, we create something called upward spiral. Now, what is that? This is the interesting part of this particular habit. So I'm going to share another image with you. So this is when we speak about the upward spiral, what we are trying to do is learn, commit, do. Repeat that cycle. Learn, commit, do. Now, what is happening over here? Nobody expects us to do everything right in one go. When I say that, what I mean is that even with this habit, and if you go back to the earlier episodes when we were talking about activities, I have shared start small. So that is what I'm saying. You cannot bring about a change overnight, and it should not be expected out of anyone. However, what we can do is take small steps. That is what sharpening the saw is all about. Learn, commit to practice that learning, okay, and then go ahead and actually do it. And once you're doing it, go back and learn something more. Commit to doing those things, and then take action and do them. And when you create that kind of a cycle, we'll continue to move ahead and go in an upward spiral of growth. So this is what this entire habit speaks about. There is certain activities which you could do associated with the habit. Number one being, make list of various activities that keep you in good physical shape. And what would those things be which we would enjoy over a period of time? Because you do any kind of a physical activity, and if you're not enjoying it, sure enough, you're not going to practice it for a long time. Hence, list those kind of physical activities that you enjoy doing and start practicing them. Select, and that too, don't do all of them. Select one of the activities that you have listed and make a goal around it. Ensure that you start that activity in the coming week, and by the end of the week, evaluate your performance. If you didn't do it as per your liking, or if you have created a goal as per that, uh, then work towards ensuring that happens. Probably, um, you do not enjoy it as much as you thought you do. So rework at it, revisit it, and work towards it. Now make similar list for renewing activities in your spiritual and mental dimension. If your social emotional area is concerned, list relationships you would like to improve, or specific circumstances that you would want to work on to have greater effectiveness. And every time select one item in each area. Don't take too much in your plate, because then you will lose your motivation quite soon. When we do these small steps and become are able to overcome them, or find success in it, we are encouraged to do more. So do small those activities, ensure that you implement them, evaluate them, and then move ahead. Also, commit to write down specific sharpen the saw activities on all the 4 dimensions every week. And when you do them, you then, after a week, evaluate them and see where the results are, and then work on it more. This would also mean that in case you're stuck somewhere and you want to understand certain areas better, come and revisit these videos or write to me. In fact, that is what I always say, that if you have some kind of an issue, or you want to understand certain areas better, feel free to write to me. I can be reached at my email ID is Rashie, Rashie dot Sinha, Sinha at gmail.com, or Rashie, Rashie at the yellowcarcompany.com. In fact, now you have another way to reach out to me. I have created a group. You can write over there, and we will have that interaction over there too. So sharpening the saw is all about revisiting and renewing various activities. But this is not the end. Yes, we have covered all 7 habits, but there is lots more left. It will help you to follow these habits better. So come back next week for the final episode of this series, where we will put everything together and see how we can ensure higher productivity for ourselves and our organization. So I will be looking forward to seeing you next week. Till that time, enjoy the week, enjoy the activities, and keep sharpening the saw. Thank you.